Have you ever wondered just exactly how your mind works? Your mind does many amazing things that you ordinarily take for granted. It works 24 hours a day, even during the night, while you are asleep, when you dream. One part of your mind is watching, another part at work. Although you are sleeping and not in wakeful control, you occasionally have the feeling that you are sitting in your own private theater, watching a movie produced by your own mind. During waking hours, your mind uses all of the physical senses, sight, hearing, taste, smell, touch, and balance, to gather information. Every waking moment, your mind works to gather this information, make decisions, and send special signals to trigger parts of your body to move. You are not outwardly conscious of many of these signals, but your mind constantly works with the rest of your body to deal with the world around you. While you are walking down the hall at school, your mind uses the information that comes in through the senses to control your actions. When you come to the corner, your mind automatically directs your body to turn the corner rather than run into the wall. In order to do this, your mind uses information that it gathers from your eyes. You see that you are coming to a corner, and your mind compares that information to past experience and concludes that if you continue walking in a straight line, you'll run into the wall. So you decide to turn the corner, and special signals are sent to trigger different parts of your body into action. However, your consciousness has so many levels that outwardly you may not even be aware of these decisions. You turn the corner automatically. Whether you are awake or asleep, your mind works in a coordinating way as the leader and director of the rest of your body. Your mind has two special abilities that are very important. These are memory and imagination. You can remember what has happened before and imagine what might happen in the future. Do you remember the first time you rode a bicycle? When you think about that experience, you can call it back up in your mind and remember how you felt. You can also imagine what might happen in the future. If you want to become an astronaut when you grow up, you daydream about climbing into a rocket ship and blasting off for the moon. What could this be like? Your imagination helps you to anticipate your future. Your mind is a very complex instrument which must deal with experience from the past, what you are doing at the present, and what you imagine the future to be like. In order to handle all of this information, your mind depends on an especially helpful tool. This tool is visualization, your ability to create a picture within your mind. When you view something with your eyes, a tiny image of what you see is focused on the back of the eyeball. Your brain creates a mental pattern that reflects whatever you are looking at. While you are awake, your eyes and brain are constantly working together to create these mental images. But even when your eyes are closed, mental pictures form, and they are as clear as the pictures registered by your eyes. These pictures have many different names: daydreams, nighttime dreams which come while you are sleeping, or imagination. But all of them result from your ability to visualize. Visualization shows that your mind is always working, creating, and producing images even without the use of your eyes. Learning to use and control your power to visualize is like finding a way to unlock the world of your mind. Playing games with mental pictures can improve your ability to learn about the outside world. You can sharpen your memory by exercising your imagination, just as exercise can make your body stronger. Having fun with visualization triggers your imagination to invent and create new things that are surprising, exciting, and entertaining. While you listen to this tape, you will find out how memory works. You will also learn unusual ways to remember names, numbers, and useful facts. Try these imagination adventures in order to exercise your mind. Learning to use the mind tool called visualization is both fun and useful. The brain works like a computer to store all the incoming patterns formed by sight, hearing, touch, and other senses. The stored patterns become memories of events that happened before. Every time you learn something new, the new information is compared with all of the earlier information stored inside of your brain. Some of the incoming patterns match those already stored. Since these patterns are familiar, your brain and body are able to react in a way that has been tested before. But if you are placed in a situation or see something that is new or strange, your reaction requires special attention and new decisions. How does the brain work to store all of the information your senses are gathering every minute? Certain brain functions are related to special areas of the brain. For example, at the back of the brain, a section called the visual cortex responds to the tiny images produced by the lens of the eye. Other sections of the brain involve hearing, speech, and other functions. But the information your brain accumulates also seems to be stored throughout the brain. In particular, memory storage does not seem limited only to particular brain areas. Because memory seems widely stored throughout the brain, a new idea has developed about how memory works. This new idea or theory comes from a recent invention called a hologram. A hologram is a special film made by means of laser light. Unlike an ordinary photograph, a hologram does not contain an image focused through a lens. You do not see a picture on its surface. Instead, the hologram contains the dark and light patterns made by intersecting light waves. Light waves bouncing off the object to be photographed fall over the entire film surface. In this way, coded information about the object passes through the hologram. A three-dimensional image of the original object appears to float in space behind the film. Because the hologram stores complete information in every part, it is a marvelous kind of memory system. Let's suppose the holographic image is of an automobile. You can look through any part of the hologram to see how the automobile looks from changing angles. But the most amazing part is the fact that holographic film can be cut into smaller pieces. Using the same laser light, you see a complete automobile through each small piece of film. Every part of the film holds information about the whole image. The human brain may store information in much the same way as a hologram. Think of electrical energy from one part of the brain as being sent in broadcast waves in all directions. Many of these broadcast wave patterns will meet or intersect throughout the brain. Imagine that each tiny group of brain cells in a specific area has its own CB radio for broadcasting and receiving these wave patterns. The intersecting wave patterns are analyzed by miniature computers and stored for instant replay. This explanation is not exact, but it gives an idea of the way information can be stored everywhere in the brain at once. So even if a large part of the brain is damaged in an accident, complete memory information may still be available in the remaining parts. Memory may involve any of the senses: touch, taste, smell, sight, hearing, balance, or pressure. Some people remember best the things they see, while others depend more on their hearing or touch. But most memories can be grouped into three basic kinds: short-term memory, long-term memory, and photographic memory. Let's define these kinds of memory. Short-term memory is the ability to recall from 6 to 8 items. You remember these only long enough to write them down. Short-term memory includes new phone numbers, a grocery list, a popular tune, or the letters and numbers on a license plate. Long-term memory is the ability to remember a group of items for a long time. Usually you learn these by repeating them often. You know the phone numbers of your best friends without having to look them up in the phone book because you call their numbers several times each week. When you were small, your long-term memory helped you learn to talk. You could remember words and sounds because you heard them used over and over by your parents. If you have a photographic memory, a visualization is reconstructed in perfect detail. A mental picture as complete as a photograph taken with a camera. People with photographic memories even can retain images of the pages of books they have read. All of the words can be visualized again. The complete detail of a street scene can be recalled perfectly. About half of all young people have strong photographic memory. The picture impressions usually last only a few minutes, but sometimes they can remain in the memory for a very long time. Photographic memory usually fades as youngsters grow up, so the ability is much less common in adults. Sometimes people have abilities similar to photographic memory which involve other senses. Perfect pitch or absolute pitch, a completely accurate memory for sound pitch, is an ability closely related to photographic memory. A person with perfect pitch can give the letter name of any note played on a piano without seeing the piano. And a person with absolute pitch can sing any note correctly without first hearing it played on an instrument. Like photographic memory, accurate pitch memory seems to be an innate ability, although it is reinforced through regular use. Just as the person with photographic memory can recall a complete mental picture of a street scene, a person with perfect pitch can accurately recall and identify sound. Innate abilities like perfect pitch or photographic memory are the exception rather than the rule. Most memory is based on associations. An association is like a friendship. Two things that were separate become linked together in a special way. With memory, ideas rather than people are linked. Most of the time, this happens automatically. While walking down a familiar street, you remember the time you fell off your bicycle while riding down that same street. This is an association. Street and bicycle are associated in your mind by a single idea or memory. Or while you're at a lake, you hear a motorboat. The sound of the motorboat reminds you of your own power lawnmower because the two sounds are similar. This makes you remember that you were supposed to mow the lawn before you left for the lake, but you neglected to do it. Through these associations, the sound of the motorboat has helped you to predict that when you get home, you might be in trouble. Even a name and a face can have automatic association. You might find it easy to remember Mr. Burns' last name because he happens to have enormous sideburns. These associations are accidental, but with a little imagination, any two things can be associated. You can use association to help remember things that are important. For example, you meet a new boy in your neighborhood named Keith Bergman. Since you know that you will see him again, you want to remember his name. The first part of Keith's last name is Berg. This is short for iceberg. So you imagine that Keith's head is frozen inside of an iceberg. The last part of his name is Man. Imagine a tiny man standing on the top of the head, also frozen inside the iceberg. The first name, Keith, sounds like key. In your imagination, hang a large key on the tip of the iceberg. The next time you see Keith Bergman, you will also see this silly picture and remember his name. Because they are imaginative and unusual, associations like this help you to remember a lot more than you would otherwise recall. One memory system still used probably began with the ancient Greeks. This system uses the rooms of a house to help you remember a group of items or ideas. You associate each idea or item you want to remember with one room of the house. Suppose Jane Johnson is giving a speech about Olympic sports. The ideas that she wants to discuss in her speech need to be recalled in a certain order. She wants to explain the different winter sports, the different summer sports, and to end by talking about several famous Olympic athletes. As Jane explains the different summer and winter sports, she wants to discuss the important rules for each sport, the proper clothing, and the kind of training athletes for each sport go through. There seems to be a lot to remember, and Jane is afraid that she will leave out an important detail. How does she solve her problem? The idea is to think of walking through each of the rooms in a house. First, walk up to the front porch of the house. Then, step into the front hall. From there, go into the living room. Then walk through the dining room, the kitchen, and then into the bedrooms. If you need more rooms, use the garage, the attic, the den, or the backyard. All you need is a simple way of walking through the various rooms of the house so that you can remember them in the same order. Once you have a route through the rooms, you are ready to use each room to hold a memory idea. Each main idea in Jane's speech about Olympic sports can be placed in a room of the house. When Jane stands on the porch, she can introduce her topic, Olympic sports. Then she is ready to enter the house. In the first room, it's winter. All of the furniture is snow-covered. Since Jane is going to talk about sports for the Winter Olympics, she might picture a pair of skis stretched out on the floor, a bobsled sitting in the fireplace, ice skates on the sofa, and the television has a hockey game going on. As Jane walks into the room, her imaginary house and the crazy way she has placed the different equipment involved in winter sports will help her to remember all of the sports she wants to discuss. In the next room, Jane finds that it is summer. The light fixture in this room is a big sun lamp which shines brightly. Jane sees track shoes, a javelin, and a discus on the dining table. She almost falls into a built-in swimming pool which happens to be in the room. These crazy mental images help her to remember the summer sports she needs to discuss. Upstairs in the bedrooms, Jane finds pictures of all the famous athletes she intends to talk about hanging on the walls. Using this system, you can deliver a speech without using any notes. Simply picture a house in your mind. As Jane mentally walks through the house, she will again see the snow and winter sports equipment of the living room, the sun lamp and summer sports equipment of the dining room, and the pictures of the famous athletes hanging in the bedroom. Jane will find it easy to remember all of the main ideas of her speech in the proper order. It doesn't matter how crazy your mental images are. You can use the rooms of the house you build in your mind to hold anything you need to remember. The crazier your idea, the more likely it will stick in your memory. Another way of remembering things is to use key words. Any object names that can easily be remembered in a natural order, like numbers, can be used as keys for memory associations. Instead of the rooms in a house, you can just as easily use the buildings along a city street or the cross streets along a particular avenue if you are very familiar with them. One common keyword system is to use words that rhyme with numbers, like 1 sun, 2 shoe, 3 tree, 4 door, and so on. Each number reminds you of a key object. After you have decided on a key word to use with each number, you can make an unusual association between the key word and whatever else you want to remember. You can mentally stick something into the sun if you need to remember to take your ink pen to school. You might stick it through the sun. Or if you could stuff it inside the shoe, which rhymes with 2, hang it on a tree or nail it to the door. Sometimes people invent a word to serve as a key for recalling a whole group of words. Usually each letter of the new word is the first letter of another word to be remembered. Words made like this are called acronyms. A good example is the word laser. The letters stand for these words: light amplification by simulated emission of radiation. Another example is a train system in San Francisco, which everyone calls BART. BART stands for Bay Area Rapid Transit. And the 4 letters B, A, R, and T tell people what the train system is and where it operates. These acronyms are short enough to be remembered easily. Do you have trouble with spelling? Use association devices to give your memory clues as to how to spell difficult words. Suppose you have trouble remembering how to spell friend and receive. Does the letter I come before the letter E, or is it the other way around? Just remember the rhyme, I before E, except after C. Since friend has no C, the spelling would be F-R-I-E-N-D. But in the word receive, the spelling would be R-E-C-E-I-V-E, because the E and the I come after the C. Many things that at first seem disorganized easily fall into a pattern when you examine them closely. Looking for patterns helps you to memorize all sorts of things. The last 4 digits of a telephone number might match those of a famous date in history, such as 1492, when Columbus discovered America, or 1776, when America gained independence. You might also think of a telephone number as containing the ages of 3 different people. The first number, with 3 digits, is the age of someone more than 100 years old. Picture an extremely ancient man or woman in your mind and associate it with the first 3 digits of the telephone number. The last 4 digits of the number represent the ages of 2 younger people. If the last 4 digits of the number were 1462, you would imagine someone who is 14 to represent the first number, and someone who is 62 to represent the second number. When you think of your 3 people, you will remember the number. You may also notice that as you dial the digits or punch them on a push-button telephone, that they form a geometrical shape or pattern. A series of numbers may follow a horizontal or vertical line, or they may form a square or the shape of an alphabet letter. You can find an association key or pattern to help you remember almost anything. Musical pitches sometimes form useful memory patterns. Some well-known melodies automatically bring special associations to mind. Almost everyone recognizes the bugle calls for taps and reveille and associates the sounds with going to sleep and waking up. If you hear the laughing tones of the Woody Woodpecker theme song, you know which cartoon is on television in the next room. Even the dot and dash rhythms of the Morse code can remind us of other things. The letter V is just the same as the rhythmic unit in Beethoven's famous Fifth Symphony. When you look for the patterns in everything in order to increase your memory, you improve your powers of observation as well. Key words, rhymes, and patterns can be mixed together. Suppose you want to remember the license number of your family's car. The number is RVT 688. 3 alphabet letters followed by 3 numbers. Think about those 3 letters. R, V, T. If you try to pronounce them, the word would sound something like rivet. The first number 6 sounds like sick, and the number 8 looks like the figure 8 patterns made by a figure skater. By using your imagination, you can conjure up a very sick-looking metal rivet on ice skates trying to make 2 perfect figure 8 patterns. This picture is so ridiculous that you will remember the license number. The best associations are always original. Painters, musical composers, poets, and inventors have an original way of connecting parts of the world that seemed separate before. They see patterns that few others are able to see. In looking at the world through fresh eyes, they really depend upon 4 basic ideas. 1, they like to compare one thing to another. 2, they like to stress or exaggerate events, ideas, and objects. 3, they enjoy finding out what something is like reversed, upside down, or turned backward. And 4, they like to act out impossible situations as if they were real. Let's see how these 4 creative ideas could work. Suppose you want to remember something that is not an object you can see or touch. For example, love, anger, and other emotions are not objects. But on Valentine's Day, people give cards to people they love. On a Valentine card, the picture of a red heart stands for the idea of love. The heart is a symbol of love. It represents the emotion of love to the eye. In poetry, ideas and feelings are clarified through comparison. For example, if you get lost in a network of angling streets while driving, you feel like an insect caught in a spider's web. Comparisons work in the same way to help create new inventions. Before the airplane was invented, people all over the world experimented with large wings and curved braces like the bones of a bird's wing. They covered the curved braces with thin cloth as light as a bird's feathers. The Wright brothers built the first airplane with wings that could be twisted to help the plane turn left or right. They discovered the idea by twisting the sides of a flexible cardboard carton. Inventions like the airplane come about when people make simple comparisons that no one thought of making before. Exaggeration can also help both your memory and your creativity. Everybody knows someone who tells tall tales. Tall tales may be about legendary characters like Paul Bunyan, or they may be simple exaggerations. If someone catches a fish 6 inches long, he might tell you about the foot-long fish he caught. A month later, the fish is growing larger and larger. It has become 2 feet long. Everybody wishes that certain things were bigger, better, or more unusual than they really are. But this natural tendency to stretch the truth or to exaggerate can be put to use. If you can invent a tall tale, you can invent a memory picture that will be hard to forget. Let's imagine that your mother is sending you to the store, and you want to think up some association pictures so that you will remember the shopping list. You need to buy a jar of pickles, a package of paper napkins, a can of baking powder, and some oranges. See just how far you can stretch your imagination. Picture 1,000,000 giant pickles standing in a row, all with napkins tucked under their chins. The pickles are sprinkling baking powder on each other. But out of the baking powder can come millions of tiny oranges bouncing everywhere. Now, can you think of a taller tale than that? Everything has been stretched or exaggerated. The pickles have multiplied into the millions. They have all grown faces and arms. Although baking powder is for baking, the pickles are sprinkling it all over themselves. And whoever heard of oranges so small they fit into baking powder cans? Any list of things in a sequence can be memorized by using association pictures that connect them. Turning an idea around and looking at it from a different angle always brings a fresh insight. It is all too easy to take for granted that everything must stay the way it seems. A long time ago, everyone believed that the sun revolved around the earth. The sun certainly did seem to move in a circular path across the sky, and both the sun and the planets seemed to travel gradually around the earth in an arc across the sky. But some of the planets also made slow, small, backward loops as they traveled along. Finally, a few people wondered if things might not be the other way around. What if the earth and all the planets revolved around the sun? This idea might have turned out to be wrong instead of right. The important thing is that it could be tested only if the original idea was reversed. When it was tested, people found out that the Earth and all of the other planets did indeed revolve around the sun. The invention of the sewing machine is a good example of a practical application of turnabout. Before this mechanical innovation, all sewing needles had the point at one end and the eye at the other end. The thread was pulled through the cloth only when the needle had passed almost all the way through. To make the sewing machine possible, this idea was reversed. The eye of the needle was placed at the same end as the point. That way, as soon as the point of the needle passed through the cloth, a loop of thread would follow. It was not necessary for the entire needle to pass through, so the other end could be clamped by a moving shaft. An anchor thread was added beneath the cloth so that the loops would not pull back through. And the turnabout needle made the dream of mechanical sewing a reality. Acting out ideas can also help both memory and creative thinking. Acting is a good way to compare yourself directly to anything you wish. Imagine yourself writing a play. You can create the script and take the part of any character you wish. Would you like to know what it is like to be a starfish? Then imagine that your head, arms, and legs all grow into the 5 legs of a starfish. Imagine that these legs all grow suction cups, and that you are stuck to the bottom of a giant pond. What would it be like to be a tree? If you put your imaginative ideas into action, the experience is even more exciting. Suppose you go to an amusement park with your friends. If you ride a roller coaster that goes through a loop upside down, you understand what it is like to defy gravity. Or if you ride the miniature go-karts around a dirt track, you can easily imagine what it would be like to drive lap after lap in a high-speed auto race. One of the most appealing amusement park games is the one with a seat, steering wheel, gear shift, and foot pedals just like those in a real car. A screen shows a simulation of a winding road, just as it would look to the driver if the imaginary car were really moving. Even oncoming vehicles and passing vehicles appear to be moving by on the screen. Your job is to steer your own car along the road to avoid an accident, and the resulting flash of an explosion on the screen. Play acting can be used in many imaginative ways. Scientists and astronauts have developed training situations to imitate the actual conditions of spaceflight. How can one practice being in space without the pull of gravity? One way is to swim underwater wearing counterweights. In that way, the human body seems weightless. A person can move up, down, or sideways with equal ease, and can even land in any position. By learning tasks underwater, astronauts learn the manipulations they need in order to function in the weightless environment of space. Play acting can make the impossible become reality. In the next section of this tape, you will find a group of exciting games to play with your own imagination. Some of the games are funny, while others are more serious. You can play a few of the games alone, but several will make good entertainment at parties. Apply your own creative visualization. Compare your ideas, stretch them, turn them around backward, and play act with them to increase your enjoyment of your imagination adventures. First, let's imagine your own fantasy castle. You can do this alone, but playing in the fantasy castle is more fun in a group. Each player has several large sheets of drawing paper and a supply of felt-tip markers of various sizes and colors. Each person imagines that he or she has been invited to a celebration in the castle. At the beginning, each person works alone, so it's best to use several tables in a large room or spread out on the floor. Newspapers or extra blank sheets should be placed into the drawings in case marker ink goes through the drawing paper. Each person takes a little quiet time to imagine the entry gates of an ancient castle. Picture the gates swinging open for you as you enter with your invitation. Inside the castle walls, preparations for a celebration are underway. This is your own special castle visit, so imagine whatever you like. You might see knights on horseback, sports contests, dancers, jugglers, clowns, or musicians. Perhaps there will be a special performance in the Royal Theater. As a visitor, you may be able to take a tour of the castle grounds. You will see the dungeons, the moat and the drawbridge, the guards, the observation towers, the weapons arsenal, the gardens, the courtyards, and the ballroom. Maybe you will be lucky enough to meet the ruler and his or her family. As you begin to imagine the various details of the fantasy castle, make sketches or notes on the drawing paper. Try making one drawing of the outside of the castle and another of the inside. Drawing a bird's eye view as if you were looking down on the whole castle from above would also be fun. Show the location of all of the buildings and the special events. Your castle may be haunted. Magicians and sorcerers may be shut away in the highest towers of the castle, brewing magical potions and casting spells. You alone determine what mysteries and surprises will be found in your castle. Whatever you picture as you will build your imaginary castle, it is important to gather all of the information you can about the castle. What are the buildings made of? What are the people wearing? How do they speak and act? Is there to be a big banquet? What kind of food will be served? What important events are taking place and what is being celebrated? Perhaps the prince or princess of the kingdom is getting married, or a knight from the castle has killed a nearby dragon who had threatened the castle for centuries. After all of the players who are building castles have had time to work out their ideas on paper, compare the fantasy castle drawings. Give each person time to explain his or her own castle picture. The difference between the castles will be interesting and fun. The next step in the fantasy castle game is up to the group. The castle drawings often serve as the springboard to a new game. Two of the castles might declare war on each other, while the others take sides. The best parts of the various castle sketches can combine into one giant castle illustration with everything more carefully and completely drawn. The group might make a book with separate pages containing the words and illustrations of a fantasy castle story. The castle you create reflects your own wishes, dreams, fears, and hopes. The drawings show you what is important to you as well as to your friends. When you draw a fantasy castle, you transfer your own mind images into illustrations on paper. In this way, you combine the imagination of both artist and storyteller to produce something unique. Another game that is fun for small groups is the trip game. Pretend that the whole group is going to a big city for a shopping trip. On this fantastic shopping trip, you can buy anything, no matter how big or small or unusual. The game can be played several different ways. In one version, each person must call out a shopping item beginning with the same letter as the name of the city you decide to shop in. In another version, the natural order of the alphabet is used. The first person names a shopping item starting with the letter A. The next person names an item starting with the letter B, and so on through the alphabet. Or a third version, in which there are no alphabet rules, can be used. Suppose the players have chosen the alphabetical version. Here's how the trip game might work. Players are sitting in a circle. One person starts the game by naming a city and something he bought there. He is free to make up anything he wishes. For instance, he might say, "I went to Kalamazoo. I bought an avocado." The next player to the left in the circle has to repeat what the first player said, as well as adding an item to the list. The second player might say, "I went to Kalamazoo. I bought an avocado and a bass fiddle." The third person might follow with, "I went to Kalamazoo. I bought an avocado, a bass fiddle, and a cuckoo clock." And the fourth person might say, "I went to Kalamazoo. I bought an avocado, a bass fiddle, a cuckoo clock, and a dirty dog." Now the game continues around the circle. Everyone will find it relatively easy to remember the first few items in the proper order. But eventually the game will start around the circle a second time, and then a third. Anyone who makes a mistake by forgetting an item or saying it in the wrong order must drop out of the game. As the list grows longer, players have more trouble remembering the items. The person who keeps the list correct for the longest wins the game. A good way to referee this game is to use a small cassette recorder. Leave it running while the game is being played. If there is doubt about whether someone made a mistake, the tape can be rewound so that any part of the list can be replayed. As the list becomes full of fantastic objects, each player tries to add something crazy to throw other players off. Most people can use their short-term memory to retain 7 or 8 items fairly easily. And since the list is constantly being repeated during the game, some players may remember quite a few items for a short time. But the best way to make sure that each item stays memorized is to make an association picture in your mind. Use the picture to connect each item to the one before it as well as to the one that follows. Suppose the first 5 objects purchased in Kalamazoo are an avocado, a bass fiddle, a cuckoo clock, a dirty dog, and some eggplant. Imagine a huge zoo and name it the Kalamazoo. You can picture a pickup truck driving through the zoo. In the back of it is a man who is trying to eat an avocado and play the bass fiddle at the same time. On his wrist, he is wearing a cuckoo clock instead of a watch. When the man starts to play the fiddle, a dirty dog comes out and howls. To make the dirty dog stop howling, the man throws him an eggplant. Naturally, it takes some practice to think up the pictures as the objects are named. But as the list gets longer, it also takes each person longer to recite the complete list of objects. This gives you time to concentrate on your mental picture before the next object is added to the list. Review your connection pictures for the entire list each time you hear it recited. With practice, you'll find yourself able to think of something unusual to do with each new item almost as soon as you hear the word. The picture may be very simple, but it must be clear. Concentrating on the picture connections can help you to extend your memory to many more items than you would otherwise be able to keep in mind. Don't try too hard. Let the pictures pop up naturally in your mind. However you play, the trip game is certain to stimulate your powers of visualization. Are you ready for another imagination adventure? Sit alone in a quiet place. Close your eyes and imagine that you have taken a special shrinking pill. The pill is harmless, but you can now shrink to any size you choose. If you like, you can be the size of a bug, a mouse, or even as small as a cell in your own body. You might be smaller than anything yet discovered, even an atom or an electron. Let your mind follow the adventure of actually being so tiny Give yourself plenty of time for the adventure to develop. Try not to guess ahead of time exactly what will happen. Your adventure will take place as if you are reading a book or watching a movie. The difference is that you yourself are in the story. You have taken the pill, so this will be your special adventure. Of course, your shrinking adventure will not be like anyone else's. Here's a sample of the way it might work. You have closed your eyes. Soon you see yourself taking a walk through a park. Something red and white in the grass catches your eye. You bend down and pick it up. It looks like a piece of candy in a colored wrapper. When you open the wrapper, you find another piece of paper with something printed on it. You spread it out flat in order to read the message, which tells you this is an extraordinary shrinking pill. It will reduce you to any size you choose for 2 hours. The pill is safe, but once you take it, you will remain the size you choose for 2 hours. You feel suspicious about this and think it must be a joke. The pill looks like an ordinary ball of hard candy. So you pop it into your mouth as you continue through the park. But immediately things begin to look strange. It is taking you much longer to move along the path, but when you look up, all of the trees seem to be growing larger. The stones of the path get bigger too and are soon the size of boulders to you. This is startling, and you are afraid that you will shrink away to nothing. You think, stop. I don't want to be any smaller than this. Immediately, the shrinking process halts. But your world is now entirely different. You are in a desert covered with giant rocks and boulders, the sidewalk of the park. There are so many of these boulders that you are completely lost. Off in the distance, you can make out some kind of narrow trees that have no tops. And suddenly you realize that these are not trees, they are the grass beside the path. Suddenly, an enormous shadow sweeps over you. When you look up, you see something like a giant airplane with enormous flat wings of orange and black. The plane is gliding noiselessly down to one of the boulders. It settles on the rock as smoothly as a helicopter making a landing. Slowly, the flat wings fold upward like a plane ready for the hangar. But as you suddenly realize, this plane has giant legs and a head that turns to look at you with enormous eyes that sparkle like diamonds. In a voice as clear as a bell, the monster speaks. "Who are you?" The voice is loud, but gentle. "I am a person who took a shrinking pill. Who are you?" "I am a monarch butterfly. I am ordinary enough, but I have never seen an insect like you with only 4 legs and standing on only 2 of them." Carefully you explain to the butterfly that you used to be much larger, the size of a small tree or a big bush. And the butterfly, sensing that you are telling the truth, offers to take you for a ride. Eagerly you hop on his back. It is soft and furry, and you climb up and hang on. The giant wings unfold and begin to flap in a sort of lazy slow motion. The butterfly's back rises slowly up and down. It is an exciting ride as you lift up over boulders and grass stems, up toward giant greenish blotches that look like strange clouds in the blue sky. And as you rise higher, the green comes into focus. You realize that the splotches are not clouds, but the giant leaves of a tree. The monarch glides toward a very large flat leaf and comes gracefully to rest. You slide down from the butterfly's furry back to stroll around the leaf airport. There are ridges running in all directions, looking like mounds of green dirt strung out in long rows. These must be the veins of the leaf, and you walk along between several rows until you come to the edge of the leaf. Since you are curious about the world below, you lie on your stomach to peek over the edge of the leaf. The distance is dizzying, and the objects below are so small that you can barely make them out. You strain for a closer look. The leaf is slippery. Suddenly, you slip over the side and find yourself falling head over heels through the air. Strangely, you fall very slowly. The air seems to be holding you up like an invisible cushion. At this tiny size, your weight is unimportant. Wasn't that fun? Try your own shrinking fantasy. No one is more entertaining than a good magician. Many magicians are clever with their hands or in using special equipment that makes things appear to happen by magic. But other magicians specialize in mental tricks. By using imagination pictures, you can easily do an amazing mental memory trick yourself. This is the way the trick looks to the audience. The magician hands a sheet of paper and a pencil to a volunteer. The volunteer takes the paper to another part of the room. The magician asks the volunteer to write down the numbers from 1 to 10 on the edge of the paper. He then explains that anyone in the audience can call out a number and name an object to go with it. It can be any solid object. Suppose someone calls out, "Number 9, a red rose." The magician concentrates while the volunteer writes down red rose beside number 9 on the paper. Then someone calls out, "Number 3, a grand piano." Again, the magician concentrates as the volunteer on the other side of the room writes down the new object beside its number. People in the audience can skip from number to number in no special order. All this time, the magician is concentrating, perhaps with eyes closed. He never looks at the written list. The volunteer sees to it that there is an object chosen to match every number on the paper. Once the list is finished, the magician can recite the list forward and backward. At the end of the act, he can still correctly name any item on the list with its proper number. Even several days later, the magician will still have the list perfectly memorized. Yet the objects and numbers were called out in no order at all. Now, the magician has never looked at the paper with the written list. How does he do it? The secret is association. The magician assigns a key word to each number from 1 to 10. Each key word rhymes with its number or connects with an idea belonging to that number. The keyword list is easy to memorize. The magician knows the key words, but the audience does not. Suppose the key word for 1 is sun. Suppose someone in the audience calls out, "Number 1, jump rope." While the volunteer writes down jump rope by number 1, the magician automatically thinks 1, sun. He forms a picture of the sun in his mind. Then the magician thinks of something to do with the sun and the jump rope. The sillier the idea, the easier it will be to remember. The sun could sprout arms to hold the handles of the jump rope, and then bounce up and down while jumping rope. And this is a ridiculous idea, and the picture will be easy to remember. When someone asks for a name of the object for number 1 later, the magician will automatically think of his rhyming key word, sun. As soon as he thinks of the sun, in his mind he will see the silly picture of the sun jumping rope. The magician quickly calls out, "Number 1, a jump rope." Of course, the audience knows nothing about the association pictures. Probably a few people in the audience will memorize some of the objects, but no one will know all 10 objects with the correct numbers, especially if they are called out fairly quickly. Even the person who wrote down the list will have to look at the paper to see if the magician's answers are correct. To the audience, it seems that the magician has a fantastic memory. But to the magician, the trick is easy because he is playing an association game. To do this trick, you need to have your own keyword list. Here's a basic list that will work very well. Use it just as it is, or substitute some ideas of your own. Try the trick with a friend who names objects for each number between 1 and 10. Once you have memorized 10 objects correctly, extend your keyword list to 15 or 20. Here is a basic keyword list from 1 to 10. 1, sun. 2, shoe. 3, tree. 4, door. 5, hive. 6 sticks. 7 heaven. 8 gate. 9 sign. 10 pen. Now let's repeat the list one more time. 1 sun. 2 shoe. 3 tree. 4 door. 5 hive. 6 sticks. 7 heaven. 8 gate. 9 sign. 10 pen. These key words are easy to remember because each rhymes exactly with its number. Once you get the trick working, you can go on to memorize other objects. Now, the idea is to do something with the object and its key word. The crazier the action, the easier it will be to remember. Use your imagination. In working with additional numbers, just follow the same rule. After you have practiced the memory trick with a friend, you are ready to try it with an audience. Explain the steps clearly. Make certain everyone understands that all the words are to be solid objects. As each word and number is called out, repeat the word aloud as the volunteer writes it down. Give yourself time to make a clear picture in your mind before asking the next question. If you need more time, ask a question about the object. What color is it? Or, how large is it? This will give you time to make each picture complete in your mind. You will probably be surprised to find out how well the memory pictures stick in your mind. If you want to keep the list memorized for several days, run through the numbers and associations mentally at least once a day. With a little practice, you can be a magician performing real memory magic. Would you like to go on a space voyage? This is an imagination adventure you can try with a small group of friends. Now, you'll need some paper and pens to make notes and sketches. Imagine that you are all crew members on a spaceship that will take you hundreds of years into the future. Each of you has a special job during the voyage. One of you is a spaceship designer. Another, a galactic astronomer. A third will be ship's pilot and commander. Another is the communications expert. Still another will be a space colony architect who is preparing to build a city once you land. And divide up the jobs according to the number of people working on the project. On this adventure into the future, nothing is impossible. Your spaceship has fantastic capabilities, perhaps taking no time at all to move any distance through the universe. You can enter other universes entirely different from our own. You can travel so far into the future that everything used today will be completely out of date. There will be new ways to do new things. Unbelievable machines will have been invented. And human life itself will evolve and change so that people of the future can do things that we only dream about today. As a team, discuss basic plans for the space adventure. Make important decisions and divide up the task in order to prepare for your trip. Then each space team member should take paper and pen and work on his or her special assignment. Spend some time alone doing this, and each crew member will come up with new ideas. Put down your own ideas and thoughts as drawings and notes on your own paper. Remember that you can use the 4 basic ideas of creative visualization. 1. Compare things that did not belong together before. 2. Stretch your ideas and pictures in fantastic ways. 3. Turn things topsy-turvy, if you like, to see how they might work backward, upside down, inside out, or in other ways that are exactly opposite. And 4. Act out new ways to live, travel, or communicate. Once each person's sketches and notes are complete, all crew members get together to compare ideas. Decide which ideas will work best, or let new ideas grow out of the first ones. Your team adventure can move ahead in any way you feel you would enjoy. You might decide to write a science fiction story, or you might develop an original play. You might capture the details of your adventure on a tape recorder. You could make huge space posters, or you could build models of your spacecraft or city of the future that you plan to visit. When you embark on your space adventure, you're using the methods of creative artists, scientists, and planners. You're using creative visualization to help you imagine a future that is both real and useful. These memory and imagination games put you in touch with all your mental resources. Using attention, humor, association keys, and mind images, you can store all the information you gather with your senses and use this information in new and surprising ways. Memory and imagination combine to make many experiences more exciting and creative. As you have listened to this tape, you have learned several ways to enhance your memory and to use your imagination. By combining these resources, you can use more of the potential of your own marvelous mind.